absolutely no responsibility.
Brianna's father, Peter Spooner, is demanding an apology. Downing Street says the comment was completely legitimate and not transphobic. Police say they believe the facial injury suffered by the Clapham chemical attack suspect could be fatal if he doesn't get treatment. A week on from the assault in South London, and officers say the 31-year-old victim, who's in hospital, is still not well enough to talk. The US Secretary of State has met Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank city of Ramallah. Anthony Blinken says there's still a lot of work to be done, though, to bridge the gaps between Israel and Hamas over a ceasefire deal.
LBC Weather.
With Ripple Energy, part-owner wind farm for a greener way to power your home.
Rain moving northeastwards from the southwest tonight, mainly clear and cold in the north, a low of -4. Rain continuing to push northwards tomorrow, turning to sleet and snow in North Wales, Northern England and Northern Ireland. Largely dry and bright for northern Scotland, though, with a high of 13. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Charlotte Morgan.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening and welcome to Wednesday's Cross Question. Joining me on the panel today, on my left, Wendy Morton, Conservative MP for Aldridge-Brownhills, who's former government chief whip. Next to her is Paul Mason, the journalist and author. To my right, Baroness Natalie Bennett, Green Party peer, who's former leader of the party. And to her right, Benedict Spence, writer and political commentator. If you'd like to put a question to them, 0345 6060 973 is the number you need to dial. You can text 84850, or you can say, Alexa, send a comment to LBC. And I'm sure you've already done it, but switch on Global Play if you'd like to watch us as well.
Call 0345 6060 973. Tweet at LBC. Text 84850. Cross Question with Iain Dale. This is LBC.
Wendy Morton, you're a West Midlands MP. We have a caller from the West Midlands just to make you feel at home.
Thank you very much.
And it's our old friend Ranjit in Oldbury. Hello, Ranjit.
Hi, Ian. Thanks for taking my call. And yes, I'm from the West Midlands. Okay. My question to the panel is, do they think Rishi Sunak lacks statesmanship, or has he already thrown in the towel before the election starts, or is it both of the above?
And are you asking this as a result of Prime Minister's questions today?
Well, just a result of what's been happening for the last few weeks. You know, not just today, but this was probably the pinnacle of what he's done.
All right, well, let's throw in what happened today as well, because we've got a text question here from Jane who says, should Keir Starmer have resisted bringing Brianna Guy's name into his response to Rishi Sunak's criticism of his flip-flopping? Had he not done so, perhaps he would have been respected for it, even if the PM should have avoided the what is a woman topic today. Were they both quite insensitive? Wendy, let's come to you first.
Thank you, Ian. So I was in the chamber today, so I did listen to the exchange. Some of the Prime Minister's comments were probably not the comments that I would have used. I do sometimes refer to the when is a woman, when is a woman not a woman, but you have to be really sensitive, and this is about respect and using it in the right context. So I do think that the Prime Minister showed respect to Brianna Gay's family in the initial opening response. Equally, I think when it comes to politics, the role that we all play, maintaining that respect, absolutely matters. And I think the way in which Keir Starmer conflated the two issues, I think he could have handled it better as well. I think it's a difficult situation for that family, and I just don't think that either of the leaders necessarily made it any easier on what would have been a very difficult day.
There was a Labour MP right at the end of PMQs who gave the Prime Minister essentially an opportunity to say, yeah, sorry, I got at least the tone of that wrong. He didn't take her up on it. Should he have done?
Well, that's entirely up to him. I mean, like I said, his words were his words. They weren't my words.
You sound as if you think he probably should have.
it's always really important in these situations that you read the situation and you appreciate and understand the sympathies, but sometimes and sensitivities. But equally, I know when you're in the chamber, it can be very, very difficult.
But this is the second time
at the end of the
something
day, there
like
is a
this has
family
happened.
there that are really hurting at the moment.
Absolutely. But on Monday, he took a bet from Piers Morgan, which people thought was quite tasteless, a bet for £1,000 on whether a single asylum seeker would get on a plane to Rwanda by the end of the year. And he's had a lot of flack for that. I mean, as a former chief whip, I mean, you will still be listening to your colleagues and what they're saying. I mean, are they getting a bit nervous about how he might stand up to a 6-week general election campaign if he's made these two kind of gaffes under no pressure at all?
Look, I'm not a betting woman, so and again,
well, he said he's not a betting man.
Those are his comments, and you know. The one thing that I would say as former chief whip, I think the language that we use in politics absolutely matters. And I think, you know, I want to see more people get involved in politics. When I talk about equality, I don't mean just equality of gender, I mean equality of background. And if we want more politicians, people to come forward, then the way that we all act as MPs, and our language is part of that, is key to I believe, trying to work through some of the issues that we have within our Parliament.
Paul Mason.
I looked back at the coverage of Brianna Jay's murder and...
we should say it's pronounced Jai.
Jai. Yeah. Brianna Jai's murder and indeed the conviction of last week of the two murderers. And not one of the tabloids, even the ones who are very exercised by the transgender issue, described Brianna as anything other than a girl. Okay, so she was brutally murdered, and part of the motivation for one of the murderers was hatred of transgender people. And so, like you, Wendy, I think we should. What we want politicians to do is to be respectful towards issues like that. When I saw Sunak take that bet with Piers Morgan, you know, laughing again over, I'll bet you £1,000 I can get some migrants on a plane. Again, the last time we got some refugees on a plane to Rwanda, June 2022, they were stopped by the courts. There were several Kurdish young men who were dragged onto that plane in a state of mental distress and then chained to the floor. Now, I accept that in a fair migration system, there'll be deportations. But I just don't want politicians making jokes about stuff like that or see, the problem with what Mr. Sunak did in the chamber wasn't necessarily that he delivered the pre-planned thing about you don't know what a woman is. He's got perfect right to do that. Is he wasn't listening when, I mean, the mood, I think you would agree, was icy. His own spin doctors sitting in a gallery were, you know, metaphorically head in their hands, all frantically texting him. And I worry that he doesn't meet enough ordinary people, and he's not listening to the way Britain thinks about these very serious issues. Somebody's telling him, I think, and maybe not, you know, you maybe know who it is, to be jokey. And it's not working. And I think it's undermining what Ranjit says. Does he lack statesmanship? I think it's undermining any sense of statesmanship that he currently has.
Benedict Spence.
I think if what we're pondering is the statesmanship of Rishi Sunak, I think you can say that he has not had a good couple of days, and that's just been gone over, I think, quite clearly. I would argue, simply for the point of balance, that I don't think what Sir Keir Starmer did in response was quite as prime ministerial as it could have been. And I think whilst it's entirely possible that the family might have been deeply offended by the Prime Minister's words, I don't actually think it's for the Leader of the Opposition to, in front of the nation, inform everybody that that is entirely what could be the case and to make a spectacle of it. I think that it called in that moment for perhaps a little bit of quiet restraint, or maybe just reminding the Prime Minister that the family might be there, might be listening. I think that would have been a far more sensible thing to have done. So I do think, you know, just for the sake of balance, that's worth pointing it out. But broadly speaking, he doesn't necessarily need to worry about that because he's going to be the Prime Minister anyway. I think that what Paul has said about, you know, this attempt to get what is actually quite a prickly man to try to appear more more jovial, more in touch with people. It isn't working very clearly, and I think that it appears all the more desperate amidst the backdrop of the infighting that's going on in the Tory party, setting up of new organisations. I can't remember, it's the 7th or the 8th one that was set up.
I think, to be fair, 6th.
6th. Oh, I apologise, I'm getting ahead of myself, or perhaps I've just revealed that there's another one in the pipeline. Who knows?
Scoop, Iain, you've just got a scoop.
I just think I thought it was a very easy opportunity for Keir Starmer to not necessarily over-egg it in that sort of very typical Prime Minister's questions way. Not that I think that he was sort of the main offender in all of this. I do think it was a very poor decision to make a joke out of what is actually quite a serious point that the Prime Minister could have done. But nonetheless, I thought that there was a very easy opportunity to look very measured, very statesmanlike, very respectful, and I don't think he took that, frankly. And I think actually the response, if you were looking at the Labour MPs sat next to him and around him, initially, actually all of them were laughing and joking along with the Labour opposition, all apart from Angela Rayner. If you look at Rachel Reeves, she was laughing as well. It was only after he did the great big sort of Hamlet-esque outcry that everybody went, oh yes, sorry, we're supposed to be looking very serious now. And I don't think it worked.
Natalie Bennett, you don't have any of these games in the House of Lords, do you?
Well, the House of Lords has its moments, but I think, what people are looking to, I think Ranjit has, nailed this, the whole statesman issue. And I think also what Benedict said, it's the attempt to make someone who's very clearly not a man of the people, to make him look a man of the people, and that's really backfiring. And I think it's interesting, what Wendy was saying, that very much squares up with something Dahana Davidson, another Tory MP, has been tweeting, saying that it's the responsibility of politicians to take the heat out of these debates. And, this is in the context of a horrific murder, but it's also in the broader context of where hate crime against trans people in England and Wales is up 11% in the last year of figures. This is something that's an issue right across the board, and to not treat this with respect in this context really is astonishing, with, as Paul said, when you put it also in the context of that dreadful £1,000 bet. And that's something the House of Lords is very exercised about. We're next week going to be debating the Rwanda bill, and the government's going to take quite a pounding in the House of Lords on that Rwanda bill, absolutely rightly, from a lot of people concerned about the moral issue, but also a lot of the lawyers who are very concerned about the astonishing cart and horses it drives through international law.
You mentioned a phrase there, take the heat out of the debate. Wendy, I think you were at the popcorn launch. Did I say popcorn? Popcorn launch. Liz Truss, Jacob Rees-Mogg, etc. yesterday. Listening to Liz Truss's speech there, that was doing anything but take the heat out of the debate. It was positively Trumpian in some of the things that she was saying. Culture wars, creating sort of divisiveness where there doesn't need to be divisiveness. Were you comfortable sitting there listening to all of that?
I went to, I was at the popcorn launch. I wanted to be there. I wanted to hear what Liz and others were saying. At the end of the day, the Conservative Party is a broad church, and that broad church does have a range of views. There was a lot of in the speech yesterday was around the importance of democracy, was also around the importance of engaging with grassroots. Those are things that are really, really important to me. I spend a lot of time in my
public institutions deliberately.
No, there was a lot of talk about the role of Quangos. I don't see it about trying to undermine anyone or anything, but it was an opportunity to talk about some of these issues, and I think they are going to be really important issues. And some of the issues that were raised yesterday are exactly the sort of things that I hear on the doorstep as well. People, are hurting because of the cost of living. They do find many frustrations in the country and the systems that we have, and equally they elect politicians to. We are a member of a party. I'm the former chief whip. I understand about taking the whip, but equally they do expect us to come to here to Westminster and to represent them. But let's be really quite honest and open here that we are all members of one party. I am a member of the Conservative Party. I have been for a long time. But as I say, there are some people in the party whose views I don't necessarily agree with. But it doesn't mean to say that I'm not telling you that. But at the end of the day, I am a member of the Conservative Party because I do believe in the values of our party. And underpinning that is freedoms, it's democracy. It's also, for me, it's about if you work hard, you can get on in life. Lee Anderson spoke a lot. He used the Thatcher line about, which estate he came from. I come back to my whole point. Politics is at its best when it has people from a whole range of walks of life.
Benedict, I don't know which part of the Conservative family you belong to. But
neither do I right now.
You don't know.
It's all very well hearing about what the fundamental ideals are behind the Conservative Party, of the ability to get on in life, freedoms. When you have an economy in the state that ours is in, it's very hard to take that seriously. When houses aren't being built, when reservoirs aren't being built, when you're struggling to get tunnels built, when you're struggling to get railways upgraded, or even to just basically work, when motorists are being unduly punished, when taxes are at an all-time high.
On the tax point, I do believe in lowering taxes.
Yeah. It's wonderful to say that we all believe in lowering taxes, but it has been 14 years and they've been steadily creeping up. So this is the thing. We can talk about Liz Truss getting up on the soapbox and talking about every little sort of culture war issue that presses the buttons, and they are important to a lot of people. We shouldn't just dismiss them and say that the culture war is a figment of people's imagination, but you only get to talk about those things in a serious way and carry some heft if you've done the basics right. And I think that this is actually a mistake that the Corbynista left made way back when, was that they were very keen to get into lots of issues that actually people might have been very exercised about, but fundamentally there were slightly more important issues that mattered more to them. And I think that this is the sign of a party that is sort of flailing left and right to try to find something that sticks ultimately, and all people will come back to and say, you've had a really long time to get these really basic things right. You want people to get on in life, they can't afford houses, they can't afford to have kids. Those are kind of the fundamental things about the human condition, about existence. Food is expensive, energy is more expensive, and it's going to get more expensive, and you don't really have much of a plan for solving that.
And Wendy, just to finish this off, isn't it the supreme irony that the most unpopular politician in the country, Liz Truss, that's what all the polls show, is heading a movement called popular conservatism?
No, because you're pitching it around one person rather than the values. That was what I would say to you. And I think to say Liz is the most unpopular is a little bit unfair. I mean,
I'm not saying that's my view. That is what the polls show.
So, and actually, I said earlier, I'm a member of the Conservative Party. I've got one goal at the moment, and that is local elections, mayoral election and general election. That's what I work to do.
There's 3 goals.
3 in 1.
Paul, you wanted to
sorry, Natalie. I would just say... I listened carefully to Liz Truss's speech, and someone had to. And the thesis was the left. We haven't fought the far left enough as Conservatives for decades, and the left have worked their way into quangos in society, and they now pose as, and this is, I'm quoting from memory, but it's pretty accurate, environmentalists, people who care about all communities, people who care about LGBT and ethnic minority rights. Now, to me, that describes my local Church of England. To be honest, it's not. If that's that's who the Conservatives want to attack, I find it bizarre. A, because it's not going to work. B, because I know Liz Truss went to Kiev before it was invaded. I know we had a general on only last week, British Army's top general, saying we could be the pre-war generation. Everyone in politics knows that what Putin is trying to do is to divide our country. You're seeing this operation right now. It's called hybrid warfare. Their aim is to divide us, set us against each other, undermine people's belief in democracy. And for someone of Liz Truss's stature to choose that as the political strategy seems to be A, self-defeating, but B, just missing the point of where we are in the world.
I just had to pick up conservative values democracy. I mean, really, last night in the House of Lords, the government lost a vote because it's seeking to impose controls, oversight on the Electoral Commission, what should be the independent Electoral Commission. We've had an Elections Bill now Act pushed through, which has got voter ID in it, which is voter suppression straight out of the American far-right playbook. We have attacks on democracy from all sides coming from this government. And the other phrase used was, the party's a broad church. Well, it would seem that the broad church might well in future include Nigel Farage, and that seems to be the direction of large parts of the party.
That was not what I was saying at all.
Well, he was there, wasn't he? But obviously in his role as a respected journalist.
Exactly.
It's 18 minutes past 8.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
Call me cynical. I don't believe a word of it.
Straight to the point.
Well, why was the promise made?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Minister, what the hell are you thinking?
Listen on your radio and Global Player, the official LBC app.
A year after devastating earthquakes tore through parts of Turkey and Syria, your donations continue to help rebuild the lives of survivors who had lost so much. Thanks to your generosity, the Disasters Emergency Committee raised over £150 million, helping provide the basic essentials needed to survive, including access to safe drinking water for over 920,000 people. Find out the many ways your donations are helping. Search DEC Earthquake Appeal. LBC supports this message.
Just going out to play with Fletcher.
Have you had a shower?
Yeah.
Ah, how was it?
Amazing. Really hot and powerful. It was like the best shower ever. I'm so clean now.
Archie, did you actually go in the shower?
No.
Love a hot shower? Come to Swell Heating. We've been keeping the southeast warm for over 50 years, and our expert engineers can install an A-rated Worcester Bosch boiler at a great price. Visit swellheating.com. Rely on us to keep you warm.
I'm Andrew Darwood from the Darwood & Tanner Dental Practice. For over 30 years, our team here have had one simple and clear vision: to provide the very best dental implant solution possible for each and every patient. And I'm proud to say that even in the most challenging of cases, we have patients we treated 30 years ago still smiling today.
Darwood & Tanner, celebrating 30 years at the forefront of world-class dentistry.
To find out more and meet our team, start at darwoodandtanner.co.uk.
One day, we'll all drive electric. And if you're a landlord with rental properties, a managing agent looking after flats, or the site manager of a business park, shopping centre or similar, you can now get up to 200 individual EV charging point grants, subject to eligibility. Each grant is worth up to £350, but this scheme won't last forever. So speak to the charging point experts, TH Electrics, and start to future-proof your site today. thelectrics.co.uk. Book a survey now.
Introducing the McSpicy and Frank's Red Hot Burger, featuring irresistible Frank's Red Hot Mayo, jalapenos, cheese, and our mouth-watering crispy, spicy coated chicken. You lot ain't ready for this one.
McSpicy and Frank's Red Hot, the hottest drop of the year. Until 12th of March from 11 a.m, subject to availability. Frank's Red Hot bottle not available at McDonald's.
Hey, Harry.
Hello, mate.
Got a nap lined up for today.
Listen, pal, I may not look like the young stallion I once was, but I'm still fit as a fiddle, I'll have you know.
No, Harry, that's not what I meant.
I'm not even that old. I do boxercise 3 times a week, and my trainer says...
No, I meant the horses. Your nap, your Napoleon, your best bet.
Oh, well, you should have said that. My best bet will be to head over to Bet Victor and check out the latest offers they have on the horses.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on the racing at Bet Victor. 18+, begambleaware.org.
Cross Question on LBC.
With SimpsonTravel.com for luxury villas and boutique hotels.
21 minutes past 8. Wendy Morton, former Conservative Chief Whip, is with us, as is Baroness Natalie Bennett from the Green Party, Paul Mason, journalist and author, and Benedict Spence, writer and political commentator. And they are going to answer this question from Robbie in Chelmsford, who says, with former Fox News host Tucker Carlson going to Moscow to interview Vladimir Putin, do the panel think, quotes, friendly interviewers are helpful or harmful overall? They may give access, but do they risk legitimising such figures? Now, Carlson conducted his interview yesterday, and Russia's national news agency says it's likely to be broadcast tomorrow. He's claimed that not a single Western journalist has bothered to interview Putin since the Ukraine invasion 2 years ago. However, the BBC's Russia editor, Steve Rosenberg, has said that he's requested interviews with Putin multiple times since then, but has been repeatedly rejected by the Kremlin. I imagine you have a view on this, Paul Mason.
I do. It's not. Look, it's Tucker Carlson is not just running the risk of giving Putin a free hit of lying, disinformation-laden propaganda. That's why he's gone there. He's gone there to open up the American electorate to Putin's message that the war in Ukraine is Ukraine's fault, that it's unwinnable, that Putin's case is right, that Ukraine shouldn't... remember what Putin believes, that Ukraine should not exist as a country, and its people do not have the right to have a country or even a language. And what I think we will see in that interview is a carefully crafted... the equivalent would be a British or American journalist flies to Berlin during World War II and interviews Hitler and previews it by saying Hitler's got a point. So when you watch it, if you watch it, that's what this is
Carlson
about.
has actually said that.
In the previews, he said, we in America are not being told the truth by our media about this war. It's killing a lot of people, and we're not hearing the whole story. Now, and then he said the journalists are giving Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, an easy ride. Maybe they are, but I wouldn't have a problem, and I'm sure if Steve Rosenberg, BBC Russia editor, got an interview with Putin, I would certainly not have a problem in broadcasting it anywhere else in the West. The problem is that this is a project to bring Putinist politics into American politics. Why? Because it helps Trump win the 2024 general election. And if Trump wins the 2024 general election, the likely outcome is he'll pull America out of NATO's command structures, and then that's the end of NATO.
If you were rung up by the Kremlin tomorrow and said, Paul, we'd like you to interview... Yeah, well,
absolutely. So would I. I don't speak Russian, so would you. But you'd have to...
Well, he actually speaks English, even though he doesn't admit it.
Yeah, you'd have to remember that there is a prominent American journalist in jail in America, in Russia, Evan Gersovich. There are prominent people who are also journalists but also dissidents in jail. But if you went, if it's not, the hypothetical is not me, but suppose it was Steve Rosenberg, you'd lay down strict conditions. You'd say, you'd literally say we get to, it's free form, we get to ask whatever we want. That's why it wouldn't happen. I absolutely think that if Putin were actually confronted with some of the evidence number one piece of evidence, a lot of talk in the last few weeks about Israel and Gaza and the word genocide. Putin has been indicted for genocide in the international court. So the first question is, when will you be appearing, Vladimir, to answer the charge?
Mr. President, probably.
Volodya, as they call it. When will you be appearing to answer this very serious charge that by abducting tens of thousands of Ukrainian children and declaring the language a non-language, you are actually committing a major act of criminality? Okay. I don't think somehow ex-Fox News presenter Tucker Carlson is going to be asking that.
And he's tipped to be Trump's vice president, I read as well. So
good luck, America.
Natalie Bennett.
Well, I speak here as a former newspaper editor and someone who really values quality journalism and quality of journalism and independence of journalism. And this is horrifying, but it's a sign of the state of America. I mean, that's what it's really telling us. And one of the things that I think this helps highlight even more is that the UK, other parts of the world, at the moment, sadly, very concerningly, it looks like we could well see the second Trump presidency. And we've all got to think about what that means and how we manage the international relations in that frame. And I'm really not convinced that our government, our military, all kinds of parts of our society have really confronted what that means.
People are still... I was reading an article the other day in a magazine, what a Trump second term would mean. And I think people are starting to have that discussion now in a way that they weren't even a month ago.
And I think, I'm not an expert on President Trump, but everything I read and everything I see says that a second Trump presidency is going to be actually nothing like the first in terrible ways. The American Constitution is extremely fragile, and what will be a future when it's declared there's no more elections in America? What does the world look like then?
I don't think even I would accuse Trump of wanting to do that, but I know. But people are starting to say, "Well, look, he has all of the hallmarks of an aspirant dictator." But that's a subject for another day. Benedict.
I will wait to see what the interview says before passing judgment on it, even if it is largely a puff piece. And I think it's quite long. I've heard it's sort of
2 hours.
Yeah, there is plenty of potential there for, even amongst all the propaganda, for quite a lot of truth to come out. And what I would say is, I wouldn't necessarily agree with Tucker Carlson saying that we're being lied to, but I would say that in the build-up to this war, a lot of Western audiences, a lot of Western politicians did not necessarily pay attention to what they were being told quite explicitly by their counterparts in the Kremlin, in Beijing and elsewhere. And this is something that I think actually intelligent people should be able to watch and see for themselves, because I do think we need to come to terms with the fact, and you're seeing this a lot now, you're starting to see the sort of the drip feed of newspaper articles about military personnel, former military personnel saying we might need conscription, we might need X, Y, Z, just to get the idea into people's heads that we are not prepared for a situation where, let's say, Ukraine does fold and Russia decides Poland is next on the agenda, which I don't think is going to happen, but let's hypothetically say that it did. We're not in a position right now to do anything of any sort of substance. And if Donald Trump is president of the United States and he decides he's going to change the game and he's not going to come to Europe's aid, well, Europe will be left in a very serious position, entirely of Europe's own making, because Europe has not listened to what Russia said. It continues to ignore, actually, what Beijing says are its territorial ambitions. It ignores people sort of miss the fact that Japan, who their constitution is one of a pacifist nation, has a military almost 3 times the size of the UK now. It has a larger nuclear stockpile, even though it's forbidden from having nuclear weapons. It has a much larger navy and air force, and it is actively changing its constitution so that it can deploy overseas because it anticipates that there will be a war in that region. We're still not really getting it. So actually, if Tucker Carlson can go there for 2 hours and 90% of it is absolute rubbish, but you can get just a little snippet there of what he thinks comes next, what Vladimir Putin envisages comes next, I'd be interested to hear that, because I don't think we've heard enough of that.
Interesting point, Wendy.
That is a really interesting article and angle, rather, from Benedict as to whether we could get some sort of snippet of information. But I really do fear and worry that such an interview is absolutely legitimising Putin. I mean, I was fortunate. I visited Ukraine when I was foreign minister before the invasion, and then I've been to Kyiv the end of last year with another organisation, and to see the devastation of that country and what's happened to the people, the culture, the language, it's absolutely shocking.
Paul spent a lot of time there, and I think you would regard your experience as life-changing.
I didn't spend a lot of time there, but I spent a crucial time there as I left 24 hours before the war started, after all the politicians had gone. I won't say life-changing. It's more about that. It's perspective-changing. For me, as I intimated earlier, everything now, I agree with General Sir Patrick Sanders that we are probably headed for a conflict with Russia later rather than sooner, but even if it's only a possibility, everything we have to do has to deter that.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Wendy.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, because I think you're very much the expert on this.
Well, I'm not the expert, but I think we all have to. I all have to become experts on it. We have to concentrate on it.
And at the end of the day, what we were faced with was an illegal invasion of Ukraine on our doorstep. The doorstep of Europe that has impacted upon us and our citizens from the very, very beginning in very tangible terms. But for me, it's that bigger picture, and it's about making sure that Europe, the West, is actually fully aware, fully prepared for what is going on. And I really sometimes worry that perhaps our preparedness could have been somewhat better than where we're at. Nobody's got a crystal ball. I'm not blaming anybody, but I do think this is a real wake-up call, and I personally worry about where the Russia footprint is in other parts of the world, and the China footprint as well.
And Paul, do we know where this is going to be broadcast?
On Twitter, because apparently it's all sponsored by Elon Musk, who is an equal, what's
a tangled web we
Putin fanboy.
And I'm pretty sure that when that is broadcast, in whatever form it is, the Russian propaganda machine will be working overtime.
And are we all going to watch it?
Yes, absolutely.
We have to, really, don't we?
We have to, but I hope. I mean, it's impossible. It'll be impossible at 2 hours. This is the clever thing about how the information war works. Most people who consume it will consume it direct. They won't be watching journalists saying, this is what this bit means. Yeah. They'll consume it direct from the horse's mouth.
Right, we're going to move on in a couple of minutes. It's 8:32 on LBC. You're listening to Cross Question. Let's get the latest news headlines with Charlotte Morgan.
The Prime Minister's refusing to apologise for making a transgender joke in the Commons while the mother of murdered teenager Brianna Ghey was visiting Parliament. Rishi Sunak accused Sir Keir Starmer of having difficulty in defining a woman during an attack on Labour Party U-turns. Number 10 says it was not transphobic. The woman injured in last week's chemical attack in Clapham had previously been in a relationship with suspect Abdullah Zaidi. Detectives say he's wanted on suspicion of attempted murder and his own injuries could be fatal. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is vowing to fight on in Gaza, rejecting proposals for a ceasefire. He's describing terms from Hamas as delusional. LBC weather, rain moving northeastwards from the southwest tonight, mainly clear and cold in the south, a low of -4.
LBC.
At Kia, we're switching on the Kia Power On event, showcasing our award-winning electrified range, featuring our new electric 7-seater Kia EV9 with a range of up to 349 miles, and our stylish hybrid SUV, the Kia Sportage. Get 2 years free servicing when you order by the 29th of February. Ready to switch to an electrified SUV? Search the Kia Power On event. Take the lead. Drive electrified. Kia. Movement that inspires. T's and C's apply. Free servicing offer available until 29th of February. Range based on test conditions and may vary.
Are you into worktops more than workouts? Kitchen islands more than tropical islands? Sounds like you've got a new kitchen on your mind.
At Wix, we can design and install your dream kitchen. And now, there's up to 50% off appliances, worktops and installation when you buy a Wix bespoke kitchen. Plus, up to 4 years interest-free credit. Be house proud with Wix. Terms and qualifying spend apply. Wix is the credit broker. Credit provided by Navuna Personal Finance.
Have you heard about voter ID? You now need a photo ID to vote in elections. Check you've got an accepted form of photo ID, for example, a passport, a driving license, or a freedom pass. And if you don't have one, you can apply online for a free voter authority certificate. Don't lose out. Make sure you're ready to vote and spread the word too. Visit registertovote.london to find out more. Remember, no vote, no voice.
Are you looking for a no-sweat, feel-good start to the year? If you want to feel great, join the thousands of people giving blood every day whose donations help ease emergencies, help fight sickle cell, and combat cancer. The NHS needs more given types like you to donate. Giving blood is easy. It takes an hour and can help save up to 3 lives. It even comes with a drink and a biscuit. So if you're the giving type, make giving blood part of your routine this year and book to donate at blood.co.uk.
Right now, Tesco is giving you a double helping of Club Card points when you shop. That's double points on things like fish and chips and loo rolls and light bulbs. That should brighten up your day. To get double points, shop online at Tesco or tap the app when you check out in store. Ends February the 25th. Club Card required. Exclusions apply. See tesco.com/double Club Card points terms.
Cross Question on LBC.
With SimpsonTravel.com. Specialists in luxury Mediterranean holidays.
8:36. Wendy Morton, Conservative former Chief Whip, is here. Natalie Bennett is a Green Party peer, former leader of the party. Paul Mason, journalist and author, and Benedict Spence, writer and political commentator. Right, caller James in Ayr. Hello, James.
Hello, good evening, Ian. My question is as follows. The Labour Party apparently is headed for a landslide election victory this year. In my memory, there have been 3 other landslide election victories, 83 Thatcher, 97 Blair, and I guess Johnson in 2019. Each of these elections share one thing in common. The winning party did not actually secure more than 50% of the vote. This, in my definition, is actually a definition of a democratic deficit and argues for a new voting system. And I wonder if your panel agree, and if they don't agree, why don't they agree?
Natalie Bennett.
Yes, James, I absolutely agree. What we need is a parliament that reflects the views of the people. We need a parliament where everyone's vote counts equally and people can see themselves represented.
One now. Everyone's vote does count equally. We all have one vote.
No, it doesn't. I mean, Boris Johnson, as James said, Boris Johnson got 44% of the vote in 2019 and 100% of the power in the House of Commons. So that means some people, in fact, about 75% of people's votes didn't count. The majority of people didn't vote Tory.
I never understand this argument that votes don't count just because you lose.
Well, no, but also if you win,
PR is a loser's charter.
If you win big, if you get. It's a very rare occurrence these days, but, you get 75% of the vote, then all of the extra votes don't count either. So actually most people's vote don't count. But I think, what I find is, sometimes people say, no one says on the doorstep, we want proportional representation. But what people do say on the doorstep is politics is broken and we need to fix politics. And PR, proportional representation, is not a complete fix, but it's a very good start to actually deliver us a form of governance that actually works. And government is not working. What we have now is very clear. And it's very easy to blame individuals for that, and I certainly do. But at the same time, we have a system that's just again and again delivers disastrous, dysfunctional government.
Well, not always. It's interesting, though, that it's the smaller parties that lose elections that always want PR, and it's the large parties that win elections that tend to shy away from it. And Labour in opposition, Paul Mason, often quite likes the idea of PR when they're in opposition, but as soon as they get into government, all thought of it goes out the window.
Well, as you know, Ian, I'm still trying to get selected for Labour, unsuccessfully. But I will not drop, and in fact made it clear in every time I've tried to be selected, that I will not drop the principle that I do support PR. I'm not sure how we're going to, if you did, your caller, Robbie, says there's going to be a Labour landslide. I'm not sure there is. But if you did, I'm not sure how we would get it from there. But I think, as well as the arguments that Natalie makes, I just think it's the idea of, it's not that people who lose, people whose candidate loses, their vote doesn't count. The problem is we're not really seeing the full panoply of Britain expressed to the polls. Almost every seat you look at, well, not every seat, there's plenty of places now where the Green Party, which, I'm a Labour Party supporter and member, you're our opponents, but if you look at Sheffield Central, where I failed spectacularly to try and get selected, I think it's 10 out of 14 councillors in that constituency are Greens. And I did point this out to my colleagues that we need to be putting our arms around those Green voters and offering them. There's no, as long as it's first past the post in a place like that, there's no pressure on Labour to indeed do that. And famously, the Labour Council chopped down a load of trees in the city centre, which is why they've ended up with 10 out of 14 Green councillors. It just makes politics not, one of the reasons, it makes politics not as responsive to the multifacetedness and what am I looking for? The diversity of views within the electorate. Everything has to be expressed through these two quite dysfunctional institutions, Labour Party, Tory Party. And I would like to move on from that. It works in the mayoral election, talking about the mayor. It works at Holyrood. It works. It's going to work even better in Cardiff Bay in the Welsh Parliament, because they're going to, in the Senate, they're going to expand the number of members. So I'm
sure that's electorally popular.
Well, it might be because it's already a PR system, and it's. If you have a PR system, what you want is to be represented. And Wales, the constituencies are huge. Places like Pembrokeshire, Carmarthenshire, the actual geographical constituency is huge. And I think, anyway, they voted to, I think, double the number of members so that they can represent, and so that the Parliament actually itself, because it wants more power, it can process laws a bit more quicker.
Who's paying for all of that?
Wendy, because there's a split in the Conservative Party on this, isn't there? Divergence of views.
I don't agree with the shift to proportional representation. I think it's very easy for some parties to say politics is broken, our democracy is broken, Parliament's broken, But I think, the British people, we have a system that works at Westminster. If politics, just hear me out. If politics is broken, if things aren't right, there is something that everyone can do. They have a right to vote. They can exercise that vote. We should be more worried, I believe, about people who say, I'm not going to vote, I can't be bothered, because that is often about politicians and candidates, every level, actually engaging with residents, with the members of the public. We see at local elections, turnout can be woefully low. And often it's when local and general on the same day, you get a bit of a boost. Why? Because people think it doesn't matter. And it's not about proportional representation. It's just they feel that politicians aren't interested anymore. And so that's why, for me, the engagement piece really matters. And you can't, for anyone who thinks I'll get elected now, I won't do anything for 4 years or for 5 years. I think that those days are gone now, because people can hold us more to account, either at the ballot box or through social media, through email. That's not, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it's incumbent upon us all. A democracy works at its best when everybody feels that they're part of it and they're working towards it. And I do not think proportional representation is just that quick fix.
Have people ever felt that? I mean, there will always be a fairly large group of the electorate who think that somehow they're being diddled.
What worries me sometimes more is that often younger people feel like, why should I bother? And what worries me most of all is if you knock on a door and you're speaking to a female, a woman, a young woman, and they say, I'm not bothering to vote, and you think how, you can say equally for, how long did it take women to get the vote? How long did it take the working man to get the vote? Our democracy, in my view, is really precious. We should value it. But it is incumbent upon us all to, particularly at election times, to get out there.
Benedict.
I may regret saying that, of course.
I mean, earlier Natalie said that there's the possibility that one day the Conservative Party might be led by or involve Nigel Farage. Well, you'll definitely get that if you get proportional representation, because actually the system will be shattered and you'll end up with coalitions, and I think that inevitably that will drag both major parties to the extremes. That's how politics will happen in this country, much as it has happened on the continent and is continuing to happen in places like Italy and Germany. You're seeing the rise of, especially, actually, must be said, far-right parties, with the exception of Spain. And I don't think actually that solves the problems that are proposed by both major parties currently lacking any real sort of vision or gumption, if you like. I think that's actually the major thing that I think, you're right to raise the major issues that lots of people are just disenfranchised by politics. I don't think giving people at the fringes more say over politics is necessarily going to make those people think, yes, fantastic, the country runs for me. If you want to talk about what young people particularly need, I'll go back to it. I said it earlier, it's things like houses. I don't think that there is a party in anywhere that I see that is particularly pushing that as a major thing. They all have their own little sort of issues, be it the Reform Party, which seems to think that everything is bad apart from low taxes and no immigration, or be it the Greens, who think that human progress is a little bit dodgy. So, apart from that, you don't really have much in terms of inspiration. You just have the two major parties in a real funk, a lack of discipline, a lack of direction, and I think just chopping that up into more segments doesn't necessarily improve it if the main core of those parties still lacks that sort of direction. I think you just end up with things being dragged to the extremes. And I'll say it again, actually, because Paul mentioned it earlier about the prospect of other nations wanting to sort of divide us and pull us in different directions. That's a recipe for magnificence if you're Vladimir Putin, to think, what have those Brits done? Oh, they've decided to take a sledgehammer to their political system, which kept out the extreme elements, and they're just going to let them all in. Wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted. And that's, I think, in a bid to sort of rescue democracy, I think that's just what we'll end up doing if we have PR.
I mean, just on that point that Benedict raises, Natalie, the only time that the BNP have had any sort of national electoral success was under PR. The AfD in Germany probably would hardly exist without a proportional representation system.
We were talking before about the risk of a next Trump presidency. What first past the post does is gives the opportunity for extreme forces like Trump, potentially like Nigel Farage, to take over in a majoritarian system, take over one party and take over the country. What we've seen, for example, is just with Geert Wilders with Dutch. And just today, talks have broken down. What happens in most of those systems is that those people are excluded from the edge, and you get a parliament that reflects, a government that reflects 70% of the people.
There is an advantage there. I remember Belgium, which has quite a complicated form of PR, I think, didn't have a government for 8 months because of these negotiations, and the economy bloomed.
Well, I just want to pick up something you said, that that PR, we're saying this because we're Greens and we benefit from them, and undoubtedly we would. We have in a parliament that reflect the people's views, but we don't actually need to wait for this. If you look at the graph for our number of councillors over the last 4 years, it's growing exponentially like that. It's going to keep going this year, and you're going to see the same thing happening, the same kind of form of graph in the next general election, I promise you, and that's under first past the post. We don't have to wait for first past the post. We elect Greens now.
All right, it's on that controversial note, it's 8:47.
This is LBC.
Hello there. If you travel by train on the East Coast Main Line, here's some important news about major signalling upgrades impacting train services throughout February. Thameslink and Great Northern train services between London and Ely, Peterborough and Kings Lynn will be affected from Saturday the 10th to Sunday the 11th and Saturday the 17th to Tuesday the 20th of February. Some journeys will take longer and may involve a replacement bus service. Please check before you travel at nationalrail.co.uk/ECDP.
Hey, Harry. Hello, mate. Got a nap lined up for today. Listen, pal, I may not look like the young stallion I once was, but I'm still fit as a fiddle, I'll have you know. No, Harry, that's not what I meant. I'm not even that old. I do boxercise 3 times a week, and my trainer says...
No, I meant the horses. Your nap, your Napoleon, your best bet.
Oh, well, you should have said that. My best bet will be to head over to Bet Victor and check out the latest offers they have on the horses.
Listen to Harry and make your best bet on the racing at Bet Victor. 18 plus, begambleaware.org.
Good evening, late-night revellers. This is the last bus home. Calling is still ringing and tired dancing feet via warm fries or a cheeky cheeseburger. Our final destination, as always, is home. Plenty of McDonald's restaurants are open late tonight. See mcdonalds.com for opening times.
You want a loan for your business, Mr. Barrett?
That's the plan.
No problem. Simply fill out this form J9732P.
On it.
And form RSVP. Form SMH. And form BTW. TT. Oh, goodbye, Mr. Barrett.
Not all business loans sound like this. At iWalker, applications are as simple as ABC, and you'll get a decision ASAP. Visit iWalker. That's iwoca.co.uk. iWalker. Hassle-free loans for small businesses.
Emergency ambulance. Is the patient breathing?
I've hit a man in my car. He's not moving. I didn't think I was going that fast.
Is he awake?
I don't think so. I was only going 20-ish.
Okay, what's the address?
Church Road by the theatre.
Right, the ambulance crew are on their way.
I'm so sorry.
Stay calm. I need you to help him. I'm going to tell you what to do.
Please. He's not going to die, is he? I was only going a bit over.
Speeding injures or kills over 1,000 people in London every year. Slow down. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
With SimpsonTravel.com. Plan your 2024 holiday now.
Wendy, Morton, Natalie, Bennett, Paul Mason and Benedict Spence answering your questions here. Mo is in Birmingham and has sent this in by text. Is Netanyahu the main barrier to peace in the Middle East? Now, tonight, the Israeli Prime Minister has rejected Hamas's proposed deal involving the release of hostages in return for a ceasefire, calling the terror group's terms delusional and vowing Israel's forces will not stop until they achieve total victory in Gaza, which he says could be achieved in a matter of months. However, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who's met with Netanyahu in Tel Aviv this evening, has just said there is space for agreement to be reached between Israel and Hamas. Well, it doesn't sound like that to me, but let's see what our panel think. Is Netanyahu the main barrier to peace in the Middle East? Benedict?
No. It is a complex and multifaceted issue, and I think it does it a disservice when people often try to sort of reduce it down to one side or the other, or one individual. I don't think it necessarily matters who would be the Prime Minister of Israel with the current coalition. I think it is not in a conciliatory mood, and we do need to remember why that is, who it was that invaded who on October the 7th, who it was that did what to the hostages and what they continue to do to the hostages, and I think that you'd get a lot closer to peace if Hamas were the ones to lay down their arms and pledge to leave the Gaza Strip, and the Palestinian Authority would be the ones to come to the Israelis and offer them peace. I think you'd get peace a lot quicker that way, and therefore you could say that the Palestinians are the biggest barriers. But, that's, again, it's about how you spin it. And I think we need to remember that actually beyond simply Israel and the Palestinians, there are other players in the region who have vested interests in this. The Qataris are not, in fact, necessarily entirely benevolent when it comes to this. They quite enjoy being able to exert influence on the global stage. That was why they hosted the Taliban for so many years. And be it the other Gulf states who have, shall we say, mixed relations with organizations like Hamas, they are not necessarily particularly fond of them. Be it Iran, which, again, has its own ambitions. Again, be it Russia, which is having great fun wreaking havoc across much of the Sahel and would also deeply like to expand its influence in the Middle East. I don't think you can simply say Netanyahu, he's a bad man because he said this about Hamas. What he has said and what he is saying is entirely understandable given the context of Israeli domestic politics as much as anything else. And we need to remember that ultimately is who he answers to. But again, you want to solve this crisis, I think all the onus is on Hamas and also the Palestinian Authority to step up and offer people in the Gaza Strip a viable alternative.
Wendy?
I think Benedict's explained a lot of the complexities that exist in the region. And my answer simply is no, I don't think is the main barrier. And actually, I don't think it's really helpful if we start talking in those terms, and saying this person's the barrier or that organisation is. I mean, we have to remain absolutely focused on trying to find a way through this. It's like Blinken said, I think he thought there was space for this, tough though it is. That has to be the focus, and about getting those hostages out, getting them released, but also not losing sight of the fact that there are civilians that have been killed, that are being injured, and amidst the complexities of everything that is going on there. So I think it's a time to use every tool that we have, political, diplomatic, keep cool heads, because the solution that has to come out of this, and I don't know what that will be in the end, but security's key as well, is it has to be sustainable.
I'm going to ask both of you to keep your answers reasonably short for the simple reason that there's quite a big breaking news story, which I know Natalie will have a view on, and I'm sure Paul will as well. So, Natalie, let's come to you.
Well, I think when we're talking about the Gaza Strip, we just cannot not think about 27,000 people dead, 67,000 people injured. Virtually all of 2 million people are displaced from their homes. And we have an International Court of Justice saying that the killing has to stop and Israel has to make sure there's basic services provided to the Palestinian people. That's where we are. And I also think I was at an event a couple of weeks ago in Parliament with some of the families of the Israeli hostages, and they're desperately concerned that, and we've heard just in the last day or so, sadly, many of those hostages have died. We have to look at the humanitarian face of this, and what we have to do is say, as the UK, what we can do is we should be calling for a ceasefire now.
The question was about Netanyahu being a barrier.
What I'm saying is we should do what we can do within the UK, which is the UK should be calling for a ceasefire now and should be calling for the ICJ ruling to be implemented.
Paul Mason.
Short answer, no. He's not the main barrier. Iran and its proxies are the main barrier to stability in the Middle East, whether we ever get peace. The problem Netanyahu injects into the situation is he hasn't got an end game. He refuses to have an end game. Hamas are militarily beaten at one level, but those months he wants are months that any other army would use stabilising Gaza. That is bringing back aid, bringing back civil government, but he doesn't have a plan for that. That's why Blinken's more or less, the subtext of what you said there, Blinken is more or less calling him out saying, come on, get around the table.
Right. What I was referring to a few minutes ago is the story that the BBC are reporting tonight, Chris Mason, their political editor, that Labour is ditching its policy of spending £28 billion a year on its green investment plan in what he describes as a major U-turn. It's apparently going to be announced tomorrow. Natalie, what's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm afraid I have to say, if you want green, you clearly have to vote green in the next election. That's my first reaction.
Why did I think you were going to say that?
But more seriously, to be really serious about this is obviously a great concern environmentally, but it's also a great concern in terms of the cost of living crisis, in terms of public health and the quality of people's lives. We have a terrible quality of housing stock. We desperately need to insulate those homes, give people warm, comfortable, affordable heat homes. If we did that, we'd be saving people hundreds of pounds a year on average in energy bills. We've got a huge problem with public health, the poor quality of health. We were talking about electric cars, and the air pollution is killing people at a large scale. The actions that we need for the environment are also the actions we need for a healthy society, affordable society.
Paul?
I cheered when this policy was announced in 2010 to 21 because it signalled that Rachel Reeves knew she had to address those voters that you are currently attracting. But I will cheer this if it's true that they're going to pull it, because I think the fiscal conditions have changed and the cost of borrowing is 4 times what it was. If you look deep into the research, the potential debt pile that we build up is bigger. And I'm not against, I'm totally for, and I want this to be the number one policy for Labour, to borrow and spend up front on green energy transformation and the rest of it. But
how can you cheer this announcement, though?
Because sticking to a figure that you pulled out of a hat 4 years ago, before you understood exactly what you were going to do. Look, most of my contacts in the energy industry say you don't need 28 billion of borrowing spend. What you need is regulatory certainty so that the private sector will spend some of it. save what you need to spend for that bit of it, like home insulation, like saving the steel industry. That bit, by all means, do it through borrow and spend. In the end, I think we might end up borrowing and spending more in certain years than that. But I think the blanket 28 bill, which is down to 20 because the government's already spending 8.
It's another U-turn from Starmer, isn't it?
I'd bank that. Politics is a hard business. I'd bank that for going into the election with an absolutely watertight and credible fiscal plan.
You can see the time. We're near the end of the programme. 30 seconds from each of you.
It's just another flip-flop, another U-turn. I mean, it's a clear indication. Well, look, it just shows Labour haven't got a plan. Here we are, there's going to be a general election this year, and we still don't know what they stand for.
OK, Benedict.
I'm happy for U-turns if it's in the name of fiscal responsibility, and the country's economy is in such a dire state that actually I think it requires pragmatism rather than ideology at this moment.
Right, our fun question for the end of the programme from Danny in Blackburn. After Blackadder and Mr Bean star Rowan Atkinson was blamed for poor sales of electric cars, what have you unexpectedly been blamed for? Now, just the background to this, he wrote a letter to The Guardian in which he said he felt duped into buying an electric vehicle, claiming they're not actually good for the environment. But experts writing to the House of Lords say his claims have been debunked. However, the Advertising Standards Watchdog has ruled the manufacturers cannot claim that their vehicles are zero emissions because carbon is produced when they're being built and again when they're being charged up. What have you been blamed for unexpectedly, Wendy Morton?
Well, as a former chief whip, I was used to getting blamed for all sorts, but of late I was blamed for nicking the phone charger from the kitchen, but I actually did remove it from the kitchen.
You little minx. Paul?
Well, I unexpectedly got blamed for Labour losing the 2019 general election because
After that interview you and I did on Newsnight?
No, something much bigger than that. Me, Keir Starmer and Emily Thornberry led a march, well, they led it and I was on it, outside Labour conference in 2019, calling for a second referendum, and this put out of joint certain members of Corbynism. I was kind of expelled from Corbynism, bell, book and candle for that.
Natalie.
Well, I'm thinking back to a football game many years ago when I was the goalkeeper and we lost 7-0 and I got blamed for that, but that didn't count how many shots on goal that I'd saved through the course of the game.
Well, more than one.
Quite a lot. A lot more than that. It was about a 4-to-1 ratio.
Benedict?
When I was at school, I was 16, 17, early days of social media, there appeared on Facebook a profile purporting to be the headmaster of my school, and it was sending some rather fruity messages to people's mothers. And I was accused by the deputy head of being behind this. And it later transpired it was just that I seemed the most likely. And also, I'd got the headmaster's speech, the style of the writing down to a T. They didn't actually catch who it was. It wasn't me, but I did say I was rather flattered that was their automatic assumption.
What a story. Of course, I am blameless, so I can't really answer this question myself. On Monday's panel, we will have the broadcaster Liz Kershaw, the director of the Labour Together think tank, Josh Simons, and the independent London mayoral candidate, Rayhan Hack. Thank you very much indeed to all four of you for joining us. Wendy Morton, Natalie Bennett, Paul Mason and Benedict Spence. Coming up in the next hour, Natalie will be interested in this, being an Antipodean. If you live and work in Australia, apparently there are plans to give workers the right to ignore calls from bosses outside of working hours. And if you get so vexed that your boss is contacting you out of working hours, you can complain and they could then be sent to prison. The Australians have a unique way of doing things, don't they? But I wonder, often Jackie Smith at the end of her email says, I work unusual hours, don't feel that you have to reply to my email if I send it at 2 a.m. Which I think, OK, you can say that, but surely employers have a right to contact staff outside working hours, don't they? He said hesitatingly.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom, equality campaigners are calling Rishi Sunak's comments about